friends, it's Christy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be making a card mixing a bunch of Lawn Fawn sets, including Oh Gnome, Butterfly Kisses, Holiday Helpers, Critters Ever After, A Birdie Told Me, and Upon a Star. So I wasn't kidding about mixing all these sets. There's 6 different ones combined on today's card. So I've stamped all my images out with Memento Tuxedo Black ink on some Nina Solar White cardstock. And now I'm masking off the gnome's hat because I want to add some stars to it. So I just cut up a post-it note and used the sticky portion to cover up the 3 sides. And then I'm taking a little star from Upon a Star and I'm going to stamp that onto the hat. So I'm inking that up again with the Memento Tuxedo Black so that it's the same ink so that I can color with my Copic markers. And I'm just going to keep repositioning that, making sure to clean it between each use so that I don't transfer any ink where I don't want it. I stamped the star a total of 4 times, and then I can peel off my masks to reveal that hat. And one of the stars I noticed didn't quite connect to the black line, so I'm taking a Memento Tuxedo Black marker to just finish that off, and now I can begin my Copic coloring. So if you couldn't tell by now, I am turning my gnome into the Sandman. So I'm going to color his skin first, and for that I'm using E000, E00, and E02. I used just a touch of that E02 to add some shadows and then blended down with the remaining 2 colors. And then for his beard, I'm using W00, W1, and W3. I'm going to be really sparing with that W3 because I don't want too much of that darkness, but I'm going to add a little bit right to the edges of his hat and in the middle of his mustache and to the bottom curls of his beard. And then I'm softening that up with the W1 and filling in with the W00. I wanted to give him a purple outfit, so I'm using BV00, BV02, and BV04. I'm using the BV04 to add some shadow to the sides of his body and the underside of his arms, and then also to the area under his belt and on the underside of his legs where they're crossed there. And then I'm going to blend out with the BV02. I'm bringing that color toward the center of his body and toward the top of his arms and legs. And then I'll finish off with the BV00 right in the center there. And that's going to be my highlight shade. And that one is a Copic Chow marker. That's why the cap looks a little bit different, but it's just one of the very original markers that I had. I started with a dozen chows and then quickly realized that I wanted to switch to the sketch markers because they just hold a lot more ink. And so I've switched ever since, but I still have 12 original chows, so that's why that one looks a little different. So I'm going to color his hat exactly the same. I'm just starting with the BV04 down at the bottom and then blending toward the top with the BV02 and the BV00, just being careful around those stars so I don't get any ink inside them. The next combination I'm using is Y11, Y13, and Y15. So I'm going to color in the stars on his hat and also his belt and belt buckle with these shades. I'm using the Y15 at the bottom and blending up with the Y13 and Y11. And then with the belt, I'm going to add a little shadow on either side of the belt buckle. I'm basically using the Y15 for all of the belt and then using all 3 shades for the buckle. And I'll also color in all of my small and medium stars with those markers. And then for the larger star with the smiley face, I added in the Y17 just to make it a little bit different. I'm still using all 3 of the other shades. I'm just using a total of 4 markers on those stars. For the little teddy bear, I'm using E43, E44, and E47. I originally had stamped a teddy bear from Your Clossom, but I decided that he was too big in proportion to the Sandman, so I thought of this tiny one that was included in Holiday Helpers, so I stamped that one instead, and that's the one that I'll be using. So I used the E47 for my shadows, and then I blended out with the E44, and then I'm softening everything up with that E43 so he looks nice and fuzzy. And then I'm also going to use those shades to color in the handle of the net. That one is from Butterfly Kisses. So I'm just carefully going right inside those tiny lines. For the net part, I wanted it to look see-through, so I'm taking BG11 and just flicking a little color down at the bottom edge and right around that frame. And then I'm going to grab my colorless blender and just soften that up. And then I'm going to take that tiny star from the beginning and stamp that inside the net. I could have done this earlier, but I just forgot to do it. So I'm going to add that now, and then I'm going to color it in with those same yellow markers that I used on the small and medium stars. And then I'll just trim all these images out with the matching dies. Next, I wanted to create a moon, so I took a piece of Bristol smooth surface cardstock and die cut a circle out of it with a Lawn Fawn stitch circle stackables, and then I used the next smallest size down to cut out the inside edge. I'm going to set that aside and do my background now, and I'm using another piece of the Bristol smooth surface. I'm going to blend on some Distress Oxide inks. The first color that I'm using is Shaded Lilac. And I'm going to go up pretty high on the card because the bottom part is going to be covered up anyway, and I want a little bit of that to transfer up. So then I'm going to take the Blueprint Sketch as my second color, and I'm going to blend that right over top. I'm going to come in from the sides so that I don't cover up too much of that bottom area, and then I'll take my original color, that Shaded Lilac, and blend in the transition area. Then my third shade that I'm using is the Dusty Concord. So I'm just going to flip that around and blend that onto the top. And then once I have that covered, I'm going to go back with the Blueprint Sketch, just like I did before, and blend that transition area once again. Then I'll grab my Tim Holtz Distress Sprayer and spritz on some water droplets. Let that soak in for a few seconds and then blot that up with a paper towel. And then I'll set this panel aside to dry. I'm going to clean up my work surface so I don't transfer any of that dark colored ink over to my moon. And for that one, I'm using Squeeze Lemonade first for my lighter shade. And then I'm going to come in on the outside edge with Mustard Seed. And that's just going to add a little contrast and deepen up that edge. Draw your attention to that stitching detail that was left by that Stitch Circle Stackable die. I'll go back with my original ink blending tool with the Squeeze Lemonade on it to blend the transition, and then I'll spritz this with water as well and blot that up with a paper towel to add some imperfections to that moon and also a little bit of character. While those two pieces are drying, I've cut out two of the Lawn Fawn Puffy Cloud borders out of white cardstock and also some vellum. I'm going to set the vellum one aside and pop the white one into my MISTI so I can stamp my sentiment. I'm using Juice Box ink to stamp May All Your Dreams Come True from Critters Ever After, and I think this sentiment ties in nicely with my Sandman theme. And that stamped perfectly on the first try. Next, I'm going to pop in my card base, which is MFT's Grapesicle cardstock, and I'm going to stamp in Reach for the Stars and a few extra star images from the Upon a Star stamp set. Then I'm going to take my focal panel and glue that down to the front of my card base using the Lawn Fawn glue tube. I'm going to tap those together on my work surface to make sure that it's on there nice and straight, and then I can adhere my vellum piece. I'm just making sure to take note of where the white panel is going to cover up so that I can add my glue to the bottom where it won't show. and I just added that directly onto the card, and then I'll set my vellum panel right over top. And then I've added some foam tape to the back of the white cloud border. So I'm going to peel off those release papers and line that up at the bottom of my card and pop it right over top. I've also added some foam tape to the back of my moon. So again, I'm going to peel off those release papers and then I'm going to tuck it in between the two cloud panels. And now I can begin to add in my images. So the Sandman is going to sit at the top of the cloud right in front of the moon, and I'm going to have him holding that little net with the star inside like he's catching your dreams and sending them down to you. And then I'm going to take my little teddy bear and add that into his right hand. I'm just going to tuck the edge of his body right underneath that cloud border as well, just to set him back a little bit so that your eye is drawn mostly to the Sandman. And I did add a little piece of foam tape to the back of his head where it overlapped the moon and also to the Sandman's hat. Then I'm going to take my glue tube and add in my 3 largest stars first. I wanted to get them situated where I wanted them, and then I can fill in the rest of the scene with the small and medium stars. So the easiest way for me to do this is just to dot that glue wherever I think it would look good for one of those stars to be, and then I'm just going to pop them down right over top of that little bit of glue and adhere them down that way. I'm going to continue adding stars until I have the whole scene filled in, and I'm also going to lift up that vellum panel since it's not attached at the top, but it's definitely secure from the bottom, and add some stars behind that vellum border just so it emphasizes the fact that it's see-through and just adds a little bit more interest down in that area. As a finishing touch, I'm going to take some tiny iridescent stars from Pretty Pink Posh, and I'm going to add those to the background as well, just to add a little bit of sparkle. So once again, I'm taking that Lawn Fawn glue tube and just dotting the glue here and there where I think some stars would look good. I love that that glue has a super fine nozzle, so it works perfectly for this. And then I'm using my Pick Me Up tool to grab those stars and just set them down in the liquid glue. And I can use the back of that tool to help me set them down if I need to. I also decided to add a few of those tiny iridescent stars on the white cloud border just to draw your eye down toward that sentiment and add a little bit of sparkle down at the bottom of the card as well. And I also tucked in a few behind that vellum cloud border so those can peek out. And that is going to complete my card for today. I'll lift that into the light so you can see how they sparkle and give you another peek at the inside. So I hope you guys have enjoyed today's video. If you did, please be sure to give it a thumbs up, and you can subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I would love to have your support. I've also included 2 extra videos I thought you might also be interested in, so if you'd like to keep on watching, you can click on either one of those. I want to thank you guys so much, and I hope you all have an absolutely amazing day. Bye-bye.